right, talk about songs. I was listening to Rick and Bubba this week. I don't know if did anybody hear when Charles Billy was on there? Yeah, I told the boys that Phil Hills will sing that song.
No.
I said, I'm going to have to,
I turned radio.
Charles Billingsley wrote a song called Daddy's Day, Daddy Day. And I'm going to put these on right now. I'm not sure those are mine. Anyway, it's called Daddy Day. And he said where the song come from, his little boy was, some days he goes to school, some days he's with mom. And at the night before, he would ask, is tomorrow a Mommy Hank Day? And you know you're a musician when you know you're young Hank, right? So anyway, he says, tomorrow Mommy Hank Day. And he said, yeah, tomorrow's Mommy Hank Day. He said, when are we going to have a Daddy Hank Day? And he said, man, that just got me started to thinking, and I ended up writing this song. I can't remember who he was riding with in the road going down. He said, I want to play this song for you that I wrote, and I want you to hear it. So he pops it in the CD player and starts playing. And the guy, the driver's just over there blubbering and just, listening to it. And so he plays the song, Daddy Days. And the first part of it, little boy, he's putting his stuff in the trunk to go to work. Little boy comes out there, when are we going to have Daddy Day? Well, he goes on through that, and then he wants to go with him, he can't, and say, when are we going to have a Daddy Day? And he walks inside, with little girls dancing with all the partner she can see, and she's like, when are we going to have a Daddy Day? He goes to that, as if that didn't already, I'm sitting there biting my lip thinking about like horse feed and soffit and stuff like that, my allergies ain't fit to kick in right now, right? So I just got my shades on, I'm good. I'm kind of glancing over at Jacob, making sure he's not looking at me too good, nothing like he does his mom here in the second movie. Anyway, so I'm good. I'm good. Then just when you think you've made it through the song, it takes you to the next level where you're sitting there in the hospital room with your dying father holding his hand, wishing for a few more daddy days. So I'm like, golly, so Rick and Bubba are like, are you serious? Did you just stop by here like to ruin the rest of the show? The truck drivers start calling in. The guy says, I'm a trucker. He said, I was bawling my eyes out listening to this song. I blew right past the DOT checkpoint. He said, I get pulled over, the DOT guy comes up there, and he said, my eyes are red, I've been crying. He's like, did you not see the sign? He said, I saw the sign. I told him what happened. He's like, have a good day. And another guy emails and says, I'm also a trucker. I'm probably fixing to lose my job. I just turned my truck around and headed to my daughter's house. And all these guys are calling in. They're like, look, Charles, I don't hate you. I just hope your golf cart breaks down on hole number 9, away from the farthest bathroom, and you have severe stomach problems. So here's the thing. We as men, when it hits us like that, because we are usually task-driven creatures. And if we're not careful in our minds, and we justify that I'm working, and I'm working for you to provide the house, the food, electricity, the water. So yes, I may not have time to play catch, but what I'm doing for you. And if we're not careful, we'll begin to think that is okay. And I love to work. I found out this week, my kids told my wife that she's the fun one because all Daddy does is work. So I'm like, why you gotta bring that up on Father's Day? I'm already convicted enough getting ready for this message. I'm like, wow. Because everybody says, moms get lifted up, dads get beat up on when it comes time for that. We try not to do that. And I enjoy work. I like it. I mean, that's just, some of the best times in my life, working with my boys, working with my dad. I enjoy work. I don't mind it a bit of work. Do it. My boys are like, no. Now, a few months ago, I did decide Sunday afternoon was time off. So that is my day. You may find me with my avocado socks on and my shorts walking around the house watching old movies. So, arguing living Tyler on MTV. So, and that's okay because it's Sunday. So we decided we had to make some changes in there. But why is it that things like those songs hit us? I'll tell you why. Because it's true and we know it. Because we do get, it is easier for us to have a routine that we get up and get into and go through another day and come back and say, I've accomplished what I accomplished for those that I love, and do it again tomorrow. That is easier than looking around, taking the necessary time to do whatever we need to do with our kids, look at whatever it is they're trying to show us, do whatever, just to spend some time with a wife, not because of a purpose, but just simply because she deserves it. So, as we struggle with these things, and I was praying this week about where to preach in this message, and I thought of a father in the Bible who was in the ministry who lost 2 sons because of his failure to act, but rose from that to direct a child that wasn't his. And I want to tell you, men, it doesn't matter anything you've done yesterday. There may be some people that you need to go to and say, listen, I messed it up royally. And I'm sorry for that. I made it right with God. I'm going to make it right with you. And I'm going to try to do better. But you're going to have to realize I've got all this many years of training of doing things this way. So you're going to have to call me out and you're going to hold me accountable as I'm trying to do things His way. And that does take some time. So I thought of no better text, or I believe the Lord led me to it. I don't think I'm that smart. But Eli here in 1 Samuel, where we're going to be today. And that'll be next Sunday at 11 o'clock here. We will have the ordination service. Will be in Acts chapter 6. And we will go and ordain Heath, who is still has been called to serve as a church. Now we're going to go to the book of Samuel. Give you a little backstory here. There's a lady named Hannah who had a barren womb. She desired to have a child. She was there praying, and Eli sees her and actually thinks she's drunk. She's like, no, I'm praying for a child, and he prays for her, and God grants this child, and then he comes and she lends the child to the Lord all the days of his life. So she brings him back to the temple, and there he is. She comes back to see when the father comes to worship and everything. And so now this young fella is being raised in the household of Eli. Okay, so we're going to pick up here in verse 22. Pray for my voice this morning. I'll do that. Now the sons of Eli were corrupt. They did not know the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. Then he would thrust it into the pan or the kettle or the cauldron or the pot, and the priest would take for himself all that the flesh hook brought up. So they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Also, before they burned the fat, the priest's servants would come and say to the man who sacrificed, give meat for roasting to the priest, for he will not take boiled meat from you, but raw. And if the man said to him, they should really burn the fat first, then you may take as much as your heart desires, he would then answer him, no, but you must give it now, and if you will not, I will take it by force. Therefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. These guys, their dad was in the ministry. They were kind of in service too also, but they had begun to use the ministry for personal gain. They were corrupt. They were evil and wicked men. It became to the point that folks didn't want to come and give an offering to the Lord because of what they were going to endure, where you had the religious leaders who were forbidding them from worshiping the way they were commanded to. So, in contrast to that, but Samuel, the little boy, Hannah's little boy, ministered before the Lord even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, the Lord give you descendants from this woman for the loan that was given to the Lord. Then they would go to their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the child grew before the Lord. If you go on to verse 22, we are in chapter 2 of 1 Samuel. Now Eli was very old, and he heard everything his sons did to all Israel. and how they lay with the women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. So he said to them, Why do you do such things? For I hear your evil dealings from all the people. No, my sons, for it is not a good report that I hear. You make the Lord's people transgress. If one man sins against another, God will judge him. But if a man sins against the Lord, who will intercede for him? Nevertheless, they did not heed the voice of their father, because they desired to kill them. Now you imagine, it breaks the heart of a parent when they see their child doing wickedness. Remember one time, long before I was a parent, I was at work, and we had a parent call us who they noticed they were having problems with their son, and they finally went through his room and they found narcotics in his room. They called him out, they brought him out there, and the father called the police to come arrest his son. The father stood there with tears in his eyes. Mom was just belligerent, just crying, just hysterically. And the dad told me, he said, I love my son. And he said, and I would rather see my 15-year-old son go now to get the help he needs than to watch him go through an adult process and a system that's just going to lead him to an early age. He said, I love him. And it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I need you to arrest my son. And I said, Lord, if I'm ever a parent, I hope I have the courage to love as much as this man does. And I mean, it was heartbreaking, because you could see he was mad. Son was mad. How could you do this to me? You don't love me. This, that, and the other. And mom and dad just holding on to each other. I love you, son. I love you, son. He's gone to his boys, and he's called them out. But the thing about it is, in this, we get the indication that this isn't something that started or just unique. The Lord's going to call him out in a little while about the failure to restrain his voice. We live in such a time today where men are made a mockery of in our society. They don't even know. There are people confused about things that you never knew people could be confused about. And we look around, and when you see just that God-loving, Christ-imitating man, he has become a joke. We don't raise our boys up to be those godly men. And it's one thing to be, what we need less of is good old boys, and what we need more of is godly men. And for us to do that means we have to decide to be that. And you will be going against the grain of a society that does everything it can to turn you into nothing but a clown, a punchline for a joke, an old, outdated, yesterday's model that we don't need to hear from anymore, somebody from the Dark Ages. That's what society will tell you that those men are. And I'm telling you, those are the men the Bible calls us to be. Godly men who answer to a higher authority that's not based on popularity polls and opinions from the latest social media source. But men that are in love with Jesus and want to. You ain't never met a manlier man than Jesus Christ. You're talking, this week I had a little downtime, so I sat and watched, some of my boys watched it with me, documentaries on D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. And what is so amazing to me, because you kind of get to a point in life sometimes where you're still looking forward, but you're also kind of looking back, and you're thinking about those that invested in you, and you just take the stories of these older folks that were there, and they'll show these young men in their uniforms, and they're going into the service with their young brides, and then you'll hear an older voice talking, and it will be that man all these years later, and you're hearing his story, and some of them talking about being in those boats, and there was a 90% casualty rate of the first boats that hit the beach. 90% didn't make it. And you see these young faces with all of this life in front of them, and then you see these old, seasoned, gray-headed saints who talk about what they've been through and what they did, and I mean, you just can't help but see the value of that. And you think and look at the caliber of men that they are, and you think, man, that's inspires me to want to be that kind of man. And when we somehow have gotten where that's a dirty word, where even masculinity is a dirty word, and it's not. I make no apologies that in my household, if my boys are not in a masculine manner, we call them out, don't we? I mean, there's expectation. I have 2 daughters, okay? And I have 3 sons. And we show what the Bible lays out for each of them, the roles that is laid before them. And that has very little to do with what they dress like. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their manners, how they carry themselves. The willingness to step up and be true and stand and be strong, and willing to be strong enough to get down and where somebody else is and help them. The expectation. I told my boys one time, when one of them were meeting their sister one day, I called them out into the bedroom and I shut the door. There were no ladies in there, and I told them, let me tell you something. You are men, and you're being trained as men, and your job is to protect and to love women. And I'm telling you right now, you won't do it to your sisters, you won't do it to your mother, and if you ever do it to their wives, I don't care how old I am or what I got to use, I will kick your butt. You hear me? You don't abuse women. That's an expectation of my sons, and you're not to tolerate that. And those are the men that we see. Christ was the kind that, when it meant taking personal lumps for the greater good, for the cause of the kingdom, he took it without a word, like a sheep before its shears. He was silent. And he took it. Why? Because he was weak? No. Because he was strong enough to see that the mission was more important than retaliation. Christ was strong enough that when the whole crowd said, "Stone her," he was strong enough to stand with her and say, "I'm not going to follow you. Go and sin no more." He was strong enough that when society said, "Listen, that's a Samaritan. You're a Jew. We ought to not be with them. There's a barrier here. We shouldn't cross them. We're good old boys. We don't do that." And Jesus said, if you knew who it was that was asking you for a drink, you'd ask him for a drink, and he would give you that eternal one. Living water. And Jesus blew through all of that. And he was also the one that when he went in amongst the religious people, and they had taken the court of the temple, the yard where it's supposed to be to reach like the Gentiles and stuff. Basically, they're what we would call today our evangelism center. They had turned it into a marketplace. And Jesus makes a whip and flipping tables, and he runs them out. We see the sincerity of a godly man. Well, let's go back to the text. Now Eli was very old, and he heard everything that his sons. I'm sorry, we already read that. Go to verse 26. And the child Samuel grew in stature and in favor both of the Lord and men. Then a man of God came to Eli and said to him, "Thus says the Lord, did I not clearly reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt in Pharaoh's house? Did I not choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon my altar, to burn incense, and to wear an ephod before me? And did I not give to the house of your fathers all the offerings of the children of Israel made by fire? Why do you kick at my sacrifice and my offering, which I have commanded in my dwelling place, and honor your sons more than me, to make yourselves fat with the best of all the offerings of Israel, my people?" Now here's the thing. You have to ask yourself, because we can make an idol out of anything. And when God says first, he means first. And when you think about it in the New Testament, he says, "He that desires son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me." When you think about that Christ is to be the utmost desire in your life, and when you think about this verse right here, when he says, "Why did you choose to honor your sons more than me?" Heaven forbid that we honor our children more than we honor God. By doing so, we dishonor both. As we look at what the calling of our life is, it isn't to be their bestie. It isn't to be their friend, and that's great. But here's the thing. First and foremost, I am to be their father. which means sometimes a whole lot of stress, because when you don't want to deal with the drama that's been dealt with, it's got to be dealt with, because left unchecked, drama just breeds more drama. So when we have to deal with those things, we have to step in and take the place. We have to honor God above all. By honoring God above all, not with just our mouths, with our hands, our feet, our time, what we do is what our children will see that will help them grow up to be the men that God wants them to be. And if there was ever a time we need godly men, it's now. So as it's going to come by what we do. And that means sometimes when we blow it, and I have a season pass to blow it, Bill, okay? When we mess up, when we blow it, is looking at our sons and saying, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. That wasn't something. That was real godly, wasn't it? They remember that. But here's what we as dads do a lot of times. Dad, you said not to say that. Well, I understand that, but sometimes the situation calls for different things. And we give ourselves a pass. Now, you do as I say, not as I do. That ain't going to work. That's not going to work. I never walked in on my dad looking at stuff he shouldn't have been looking at. I never walked in on my dad beating my mother. Never walked in on my dad with another woman. Never walked in on any of that stuff, because he was a man that carried himself to a level of integrity that was expected by Christ. At the end of his life, I mean, to the day that he died, I mean, he maintained that walk. And I think of that. There's a song. It's a country song called "Walk a Little Straighter, Daddy." You're still leading me. If you ever heard it, and that's the thing, because you're still leading me. There are those of you here. Your fathers are what long out of the picture. I've had young men in my house that didn't know who their biological fathers were. And if you've never sat and talked with someone who has been through that, and they might tell you it doesn't bother them, but when they get honest, they get to say, it really has something I've longed for. To know, just to know. And they look for those relationships of someone to invest in them, like Paul and Timothy. That somebody is going to invest in them for the cause of Christ. And many of you step up and do that. Many of you have taken roles in the lives of children that were not biologically yours, that some people would have said, why would you do that? And you have been a daddy to them, and you have loved them, and you have been there, and you have taken care of them, and thank God for men like you. And we need to be such men. As he goes through this, and he's being called out about honoring his children more than God. We love our children, absolutely. But we have to put God before them, or we'll never be the parents that God wants us to be, and we'll never be the parents they need. If we love them more than we love God, we're leading them down a path to destruction. So we have to have that focus, that drive. Therefore the Lord God Israel says, I said indeed that your house and the house of your father would walk before me forever. But now the Lord says, far be it from me. For those who honor me, I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days are coming that I will cut off your arm and the arm of your father's house, so that there will not be an old man in your house. And you will see an enemy in my dwelling place. Despite all the good which God does for Israel, and there shall not be an old man in your house forever. But any of your men whom I do not cut off from my altar shall consume your eyes and grieve your heart, and all the descendants of your house shall die in the flower of their age. Now this shall be a sign to you that will come upon your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die, both of them, and I will raise up for myself a faithful priesthood, who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before my anointed forever. And it shall come to pass that everyone who is left in your house will come and bow down to him for a piece of silver and a morsel of bread, and say, please put me in one of the priestly positions, that I may eat a piece of bread. God will not be mocked. And God is going to take this family from the highest position, the highest esteemed position, and make them to a point where they're begging for a morsel of bread, and just put me in some. I will empty the chamber pots, if you will let me. That they'll be just looking for something. Now, I don't know of a sadder thing as a parent to hear that Because I would have to know, and a lot of it is going to come back to me. We always say you can delegate authority, you cannot delegate responsibility. And yes, I do know there are great parents out there who have done everything they can with their kids and done it right, and they grew up in rebellion. But I do believe the seeds were planted, and we do not know what will happen with that. I also know that the Bible says that if you raise them up that way when they grow old, they shall not depart. I know many parents that take great comfort in that scripture. Now, chapter 3, the boy Samuel ministered the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no widespread revelation. And it came to pass at that time, while Eli was lying down in his place, and his eyes had begun to grow, so dim that he could not see. And before the lamp of God went out in the tabernacle of the Lord, where the ark of God was, while Samuel was lying down, the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, "Here I am." So he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." He thinks Eli's calling. And Eli said, "I did not call. Lie down again." And he went and lay down. Then the Lord called yet again, "Samuel." So Samuel arose and went to Eli, and he said, "Here I am, for you called me." And he answered, "I did not call, my son. Lie down again." Now Samuel did not know yet the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. So he arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you did call me." And then this old priest, this man, begins to have, and he perceives that God's calling him. And he could have been bitter. Here's the thing. If you let your past rule you, you'll have no future. You understand that? We've all made mistakes. I'll tell you, they ain't a stain that the blood of Christ can't wash off. And man, he can raise you up and put you back and walk, and everything that the devil thought was a victory, you can turn into a testimony to the glory of God Almighty, and you see people coming to the Lord through it. It's amazing. Not a stain on the planet, not a stain in the universe, in existence, that the blood of Christ can't wipe off. And so here's the thing. You may have said, "I blew it with my own kids." Too late now. No, it's not. If they're still living, they're still around, there's a possibility. Where there's a God, there's a way. Now, he could have said, "Nope, my boys are being cut off. I don't care what happens after this. You want to cut them off, God, do what you want to do next. I ain't going to have no part of it." Poor me. He didn't do that. This man acted like a man and perceived that the Lord had called the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go lie down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you must say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" So Samuel went and lay down in this place. He instructed the boy. He wasn't his. But he had taken him responsibility for it, and he instructed him to be faithful to the Lord, something that he had saw his sons not do. And perhaps he waited too long, because he did go tell the boys, "Look, this ain't right. Guys, what are you doing?" And obviously from what we read from the divine response, it wasn't partaken as holding them back. It wasn't enough. But now he is instructing this young man, listen and respond. That's what you and I can do. Some of you never had kids of your own at all. And you get the opportunity as you encounter younger people, maybe nieces, nephews, maybe people in whatever ball program you're involved in, or whatever, you get the opportunity to say, "You know what, listen," and respond, "Here I am, Lord." And to point them and to show them. And I beg you, let your actions and your words be the same. Please don't say one thing and completely live another. There's a story about a family that leaves church, and on the way home, mom and dad are fighting and they're arguing, and man, they're just going on with brother and sister, and then mom and dad just going at it. Somebody pulls out in front of them, they're already tense. Dad lets some words slip, that hadn't come out in a few years. And mom's like, "Well, boy, that was a waste of time going to church today, wasn't it? Look at that." And here it goes. And the kids are there, and they finally get in, and they calm down, and they get to sit around the table for Sunday dinner, and Dad bows his head, and he prays, and says, "Oh, Father, thank you for this day and the time we had in your house, and for my family, and the love that you gave us, and Lord, fill our hearts with love for one another. Thanks for this food. In Jesus' name, amen. The little boy said, Daddy, can I ask you a question? Yes. Did God believe what you just said now, or the way we were on the way home from church? Because that puts it into perspective, doesn't it? Look, you're going to have, what you got to show your kids is not just, and other kids, not just your kids, not just how it's going to be in the good times, but how the times don't go your way. That's what they need to see. You know, when I was ordained in 2000, Father's Day 2003. So I guess that's 16 years ago. And as a much younger pastor, whenever God's people would have a disagreement or butt heads, I remember getting very anxious about it, very nervous. What I have come to appreciate, though, over the years, is seeing when God's people have disagreements and difference of opinions, and they still walk lovingly together. There are men in this room that I've told my sons, you watch that man right there. He loves Jesus. He's a man of God. You watch that one. You see this woman right here? This is the kind you're going to look for in a wife. Because I'm telling you, from the cradle to the grave, as long as I'm alive, I will be somehow, some way, wanting to influence the lives of my children. There will come a time when that influence will have less authority than it has right now. But I want to influence them. I pray for their spouses now. My 4-year-old daughter, I'm praying for her husband. Her godly husband and her children will get saved. Who wants to raise, who wants to babysit a bunch of unsaved heathen grandkids, right? You know what I'm saying? No, seriously. I'm praying that they get saved. And long after I'm dead and gone, and in that little plot of ground over in Hope Cemetery, those prayers are going to still be working. That's awesome. So I take great comfort in that. So he tells, we want to be the kind of men and women that say, I can't speak up because my past has been this. Now we want to say, you know what? This was my past. Jesus has delivered me from my past, taken as far away as the east is from the west. And you know what? I want to tell you, and I can tell you from experience, so for someone who at one point in time didn't listen, listen. Listen and respond. Now, verse 10, the Lord came and stood and called as other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel answered, Speak, for your servant hears. Then the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, I will do something in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. And in that day I will perform against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house, from beginning to end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knows, because his sons made themselves vile, and he did not restrain them. And therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. So Samuel lay down until morning and opened the door of the house of the Lord. And Samuel was afraid to tell Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. Now, you can imagine that, wouldn't you? Here's a man you respect. Here's a man that's had a good part in raising you since you've left your mom's side, and you've got to go tell him, dude, God is cutting you off. You're done. So he's fearful of that. And he goes to him. And many people, when they have to come to us, I had a young woman one time, when I was a teenager actually. I'll be 100% honest with you. I had instructed a friend of mine. She liked him. She was crazy about it. And I had instructed a friend of mine. She was crazy. And don't take her. Y'all already. I'm telling you. I don't think y'all ready to go. Stay away from her. She gets word of it. He told me. Anyway, anyway, she calls me to her house. I said, well, I'm not going to go see a young woman by myself. She said, my dad's here. I said, okay. So we go over there. Dad sits there. She opens the Bible, Matthew 17. And she says, according to the Bible, I'm supposed to go to you because I have something against you, and I need to get this straight with you. And she did. She did exactly what the Bible said. Now, in the flesh, Well, sometimes you're like, you little snot, who are you to call me out? If you didn't act the way you act, maybe I wouldn't have said anything. And you know, but would that have helped anything? No. Would it have been right? No. So to be able to say, okay, let's go through this. And we did, and we left, and we prayed together, and everybody still has a good relationship today. But it was dealt with biblically. And so, if someone is coming to you and you're a person of authority, put your ego out of the way and say, how can I minister to you? Because your response at that moment, they may be as wrong as they is wrong, but they may be right. And your response at that moment, it could affect their life from here to eternity and their eternity by the way you respond. So he says, Samuel, my son, he answered, here I am. And he said, what is the word that the Lord spoke to you? Please do not hide it from me. God do so to you and more also if you hide anything from me of all the things that he said to you. Then Samuel told him everything. And he hid nothing from him. And he said, it is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him. And I believe Eli responded like a man at that moment. I think he responded about a man that knows his past, knows what he has done, and has heard the word of the Lord, has seen the Lord working in this young man, and said, so be it. He didn't defend himself. He didn't take up all these other false accusations. He didn't do anything. He just, so be it. So Samuel grew in the Lord was with him and let none of his words fall on the ground. All Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel had been established as the prophet of the Lord. Then the Lord appeared again in Shiloh. The Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. I'm going to tell you, you and I have a duty to us like I don't know that any other generation has. If you look around, just go back 20 years, your children did not have computers with access that connected them to all over the world in their pockets. Immediate influence from all over the place, no matter how hard we try, something always sneaks in. The Bible says that even the ministers of Satan can fear his angels of light. So there are very sneaky things that get in. And one of the went through a class one time, the cyber security class, and the guy from the FBI was talking about the window of predators that we allow in the rooms of our children. And somebody knocked on the door, and we opened the door and saw these people standing there, and they said, we want to go to the private room with your child. Is that okay? We'd be absolutely not. We'd probably respond with a pistol or something, you know? But so many times we let them in this way, and we never know what's going on, what's being said. The guy talked about one of his jobs is to go undercover, has teenage boys, teenage girls, and he said on average, almost every time he logged in, he was engaged by a predator within 14 minutes. Every time. So when our kids get mad because we're limiting FaceTime or give me your phone. I want to check the history. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's my privacy. You ain't got no privacy. You live here. You have privacy. That's called you pay more. You don't do that yet. Okay? So and that's to protect you. That is to go. My wife, she has access to my phone at any time. I got access to her, but I don't have to have stuff in. So, but she would pull it up for me. My kids were explaining to me yesterday what FaceTime was. And I understand now you're supposed to have to brush. Now you can talk on the phone, but you can see each other. That just means you got to brush your hair to talk on the phone. That's silly. Anyway, but what I'm telling you, and it's on a serious note, the things that are out there for our children, the things that are out there that they have access to years ago, you and I had to go look for. They don't. And bless their hearts, they make mistakes behind closed doors with pictures that somebody said, oh no, once it's the media picture, it's out there and it's gone forever. The man standing there that worked for the FBI said, I'm here to tell you there's no such animal. If it is digital and it is taken, somewhere, somehow, somebody can receive it for eternity. Don't trust it. the next day we came to work, and one of the lieutenants from Pensacola PD, he said, well, my whole family's mad at me. And he had like 2 teenage daughters, and he and his wife was mad, and the guy was like, why are they mad at you? He said, I went home and I took every computer out of every bedroom, and now we have a community place where the computer sits, and if you want to use the computer, you sit right there. Me, my wife, and my children, we take turns, that's where we sit. And he said, and they're all mad at me now. He said, I had no idea how easy it was. But here's the thing, that's sexual predator. Let's talk about sin predators for a minute. And some of the philosophies that creep through, that come through, are some of the things that come through. I'm telling you what, if you forget the phones, forget the computers, if you let your kids watch the regular news and don't go back and say, okay guys, we need to talk about what's really being said here, then you're training them that way. Who would have thought the news would be an instrument of Satan? So you got to we cannot be lazy parents in 2019. And I don't mean just driving your kids to ball practice. I mean, sitting down with your children and talking about this book right here. Sitting down and talking with your children about what's going on out there and how you apply this out there in everything you do. We can't be lazy parents. Or we'll find ourselves when those children are grown, like Eli did, and saying, what are you doing? And we'll find out that it's too little too late. Wherever you're at right now, you make a decision to do the next right thing. I'll tell you right now. And I have to lead you, and leading means by example. That's what God's called me to do. I don't do daily devotions with my family. Now, this week I got convicted about that. So, but what we're going to do, Stephanie called me out on it years ago. She's the only one that did. I challenged them that I was going to do a read a proverb every day with Jairus. You know, the month I started, we did it for a few weeks, and I told the church, call me, Brother David, are you doing Proverbs? Let me tell you something right now. Stephanie hit me up. Are you reading Proverbs with him? No. And anyway, so we quit talking to her. But anyhow, I'll play. But what I'm committing to my wife and my children in front of you, because I expect you to hold me accountable. And y'all do this for each other. I want to, at one meal every day, because life is crazy, I want to read, for us, it's going to be a proverb. We'll start in Proverbs chapter 1. Are we not, what's today, the 16th? Okay, we'll probably start in Proverbs chapter 16 today. And we're going to do that at one meal every day. She and I hadn't talked about this. She's heard this too, first time I've heard it. We're going to do that. We're going to do that one proverb a day at the dinner table. And we'll pray. We're going to do it. So you guys hold me accountable. I know she will. You hold me accountable. Stephanie, I have no doubt. Stephanie Price comes like, you read today? Locking her number and stuff. So I challenge you. And it could be, look, that might not be what your family needs. I plan on, the Bible calls these boys and girls arrows and quivers. I want to see godly men and women leave my house. I want to see godly men and women who represent Christ. So for our house, until the Lord leads different, it's going to be Proverbs. For you, it might be a devotion book that you have. One of the best tools, I think, if you're new in faith, is get you a good children's Bible. A good one. Do some research. And read that to your family, especially if you have little ones, and just read the story Bible. Don't let that be all you read. But read that at mealtime, and just something that we as a church say, you know what? It starts with me. So I'm confessing that to you. And that's something I've dropped the ball on, something I know I should do, but it's always kind of like, you talk about awkward, because here's the thing. It's awkward to go and say, hey, look, as a man, and I don't know why it is, because we're just goofy, I guess. But it's awkward for us to go, look, I know I should have been doing this, because first of all, that's admitting you're lacking in something. We hate to do that. I could have done better when I was on here, you know. So I'm saying in front of all of y'all, not just her. I haven't led that way. I haven't done that properly. So that's going to change starting today, and I challenge you to the same. And yes, I expect you to ask me, because that's what we should be doing with one another, is holding each other accountable. So we're watching Deacon training today, and I'm saying, man, as I wasn't convicted already enough today, right? See, y'all only get it for 30, 45, not even 45 minutes, for 30 minutes. And in preparing for it, you get it from the time you read it to you're praying through it all the way going like, okay, Lord, I hear you. And the Lord's right and I'm wrong. And we as men need to stand up and lead. We need to lead. And we need to be led by the one who's worth following, and that's Jesus Christ. All right? If you don't know the Lord, come see me after service today. If you're a visitor, we're so glad you're here. And I'd love to spend all the time you need just telling you the good news of Jesus Christ.